Welcome in to another episode of Betting the Pitch. I'm your host, the real underscore G Warner. This is the Thursday, December 21st edition. We're going to go through the English Premier League and also Serie A. I feel like everything else is finished. We have La Liga, which I've already done an episode on, that is closing out their 2020 three campaign or the portion of the season today. So check back the previous episode if you want some La Liga stuff for today's action. But Premier League starts today. We have Serie A this weekend, I think Friday and Saturday before they're off for the holiday. And then I think everything else is covered, but I completely missed Liga middle of this week. Anyone, if you see that happening in the future and you've noticed that I'm completely forgetting a league, please slide my DMs at the real underscore G Warner. But we'll start with the Premier League, and we do have one Thursday matchup. I will be doing ultimate best bet end of show. So we'll start on Thursday with Crystal Palace hosting Brighton. Currently, Crystal Palace a quarter goal underdog at home with more of the juice over unders 2.5, juiced a little bit to under. Crystal Palace, I mean, it's a pretty big battle of two teams that go in opposite directions completely. Palace, a defense first, don't really have a lot of goal scoring in them, though. It looks like Eze returned as a substitute against Manchester City. Plus, they had that stolen point, which was huge for them on the road at the Etihad, which is a place where Crystal Palace seems to pull off some incredible comebacks, upsets, things of that nature. So good for them. They're a quarter goal underdog at home to a Brighton side who've been playing all across Europe, have managed to win their Europa League group. Everyone's pretty happy at Brighton, I think. And now they get another test with the opening matchup after coming off a pretty them getting dominated effort against Arsenal last weekend at the Emirates. So Brighton are a quarter goal favorite on the road, so they are going to go into Crystal Palace, a really tough place to play, though the fortress that existed in previous seasons doesn't seem to be as dominant. My question really is, how do Crystal Palace score? What the normal answer would be is that when Crystal Palace leave themselves open, but I feel like they've been a lot better defensively this year. And this isn't one of those teams that really look like they're going to puncture them or really threaten them too much. So I'm trying to figure out where to go on this one. Like Crystal Palace to me are a dead under team, and I would lean that way based on playing at home. But Brighton are going to be on the front foot, attacking the whole time. That's what Roberto De Zerbi does. It's always what he's done. It's what he does, no matter if he's got the worst team. But today, it should be a better squad going on the road to Crystal Palace. So I guess if you're looking to play something for some action, I think under or the Crystal Palace home side would be kind of my interest here. It's a little bit hard for me to want to put that though as a potential ultimate best bet. I guess I'll add those as my possibilities, but I'll certainly be looking for a little bit different direction if possible. And if you're listening on YouTube, please hit subscribe. If watching, I guess you could be doing that anywhere. If you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe. If you're watching or listening on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, leave a 5-star review. It'd be huge for the search rankings. And if you're not a member of Bet Online or SportsBetting.ag, go check the podcast description for links to get free money from the casinos. Always good to have as many outs as possible in this sports betting business that we love. Some days we love it more than others. Moving to Friday, we have one match in the Premier League. We have Aston Villa, 2-goal favorite to Sheffield United. All the juice on Sheffield United right now on the road. Over unders 3.25, juiced a little bit to under. So Aston Villa, I mean, stole a win. Thank you to a red card VAR decision on the road at Brentford this weekend. It was a really tough place and spot for them, coming off two incredible, dominant home victories against Arsenal and Manchester City, all in the same week within a few days span. Felt completely robbed when I mean, I guess you could argue it was a red card, and certainly there was, I think, two different checks for Brentford players, and they're incredible at just letting awesome results and performances fall out the window. But Aston Villa, credit them, they got a great flick on header for a goal, I think, to win the game. And got an important equalizer pretty much right after the red card, and that's what championship teams do. They could go top, I believe, of the Premier League if they win this matchup as a 2-goal favorite at home, where they play really well. That should be something possible, to say the least. I think Sheffield United instead will go into Aston Villa, and they're going to go to try to defend as much as they can. They know they can't really score with anybody. Chris Wilder, who's back at manager at Sheffield United after being sacked a couple seasons ago, he is in he's basically in place to try to keep this team in the league, fight relegation, and they're going to do that by trying to keep this as low scoring as possible. I think there's more value in under 3.25 than there is in 2 goals, just because you got a little bit extra to play with, and I don't think Sheffield United are very likely to contribute on the scoreboard. So then you got to decide. I guess part of this is Aston Villa. They are about as expensive as they can be right now. I think that does play into the total a little bit. Certainly does into the spread as a 2 goal favorite. Do we trust their offense? I mean, they've been really good at scoring goals at home. Is that repeatable? It probably is. Sheffield United, of course, or both these teams. I don't think either played in the Carabao EFL Cup this week, so they're should be pretty well rested. Aston Villa finally has a midweek off, which it's been a very, very long time for them. Sheffield United playing on the road at Chelsea last weekend, I believe. So another road game that's tough, back-to-back road games, but it's also the festive period, and there is a ton of run-ups of matches that are all bleeding into each other over the next few weeks. So it's probably one of those scenarios where you take lead and you try to rest players, or if you you want to get out of this as healthy as possible. So maybe we see a little bit more rotation. It's tough to really get in the mind of what these managers are going to do. It might just be that they rotate for the start of the next match and then bring in substitutes a little bit earlier or something like that. All tough to say. I think my biggest interest here is Sheffield United under 3.25. It's a little bit backing a bad team's defense, but I feel like they got a big confidence boost from beating Brentford at home. Played an okay match, especially well defensively, I think, at Chelsea to at least keep them as low scoring as possible versus a pretty lofty total. So I think Sheffield are unlikely to threaten Aston Villa, and they're going to make Aston Villa try to work to score goals. So I think under 3.25 is my biggest interest there. Moving to Saturday with West Ham hosting Manchester United, currently a pick'em with more juice on the Manchester United side, interestingly enough. And I think this is flipped from being more juice to West Ham earlier. They did play in the Carabao Cup midweek and did seem to play some of their better players. So we'll see what that means for how quickly and how available everyone will be. Wednesday to Saturday is a pretty quick turnaround. I guess the yawns are back no matter what time we're recording these, unfortunately. But so there is certainly a rest advantage of the Manchester United side, but does that matter? Does it make them, they should be potentially a favorite, even if it's pick 'em, but there's more juice on their side right now, bet online. So that's what we're going to treat them as. Totals over 2.75, juice to the over pretty significantly. Might see a 3. West Ham has been scoring a ton of goals. I think a push on 3 would be important, though. That's about as premium of a price as you could put in the West Ham offense. Their defense hasn't been great this season, but a lot of times the overs have been hitting because of their offense, and they've been scoring a ton more goals than expected. Paquetá Kudus was incredible this past weekend against Wolverhampton, and I don't know that West Ham are really fearful of a Manchester United side who've really been struggling, and it's always a big match for David Moyes, who is a former manager of Manchester United, if I remember correctly. So everything points to me to West Ham. I feel like pick'ems at home are still a possibility for me to play. I don't really like pick'ems on the road because I think there's just such a much higher ceiling for home teams and across really all sports, but especially in soccer. I think Manchester United are still a team I want to play against, even if they did put forth a gritty effort at Anfield against Liverpool last weekend. So that'll be my interest in that, I guess, early one on Saturday morning. Moving next to Luton Town hosting Newcastle, as I try to remember that I'm a real professional podcaster and I should have my phone on Do Not Disturb. So Luton Town, they're hosting Newcastle, 3/4 goal underdog at home. All the juice on Newcastle on the road, over unders 2.75, juice heavily to under right now. Big test for Newcastle's road struggles, considering they're facing the worst team, the lowest budget team in all of the Premier League. And Luton Town just had a match abandoned because their captain had a second consecutive heart issue, maybe not consecutive, but second in the last, 6 months or so. That's also a big loss to Luton Town defense. So Newcastle, they were very fortunate for an early kind of silly red card, silly by the player's action, but also you could argue silly when the like English Premier League halftime show here in the US. It was like, that's no way a red card. Guy jumped into him. Yes, it was ridiculous, but it was a forward trying to make a tackle, and he made the wrong decision. And VAR calls him over because they're re-refereeing games. It's just like VAR is such a disaster. It should literally be offsides, and that's it at this point. Or turning down penalties as opposed to giving them, because they basically they kill unders and they kill underdogs, and that's I'm an endangered species, unfortunately, when VAR is involved. With that said, Luton Town, a three-quarter goal underdog at home, probably climbs to one, would be my guess before this kicks off, based on Luton Town missing their player. You could see some banding together for the club, for everything like that, with a really teary-eyed manager from last weekend. Maybe this keeps his job a little bit longer, though I don't know that they're really looking to replace him at this point. Just Newcastle's road splits have been really awful. They were great at home, but I think there are plenty of questions to be asked about their offense. But I do think that they should be able to defend Luton Town pretty well. So my interest here is under 2 3/4. I guess I have some interest in the home dog, but I think I'd want to get a full goal of insurance before I get involved in that. And missing their best defender does certainly put some pressure or additional pressure on under. But I think it's even worse for a single goal Newcastle win or 2-0 Newcastle win. I think I'd rather have under there than the home underdog. Moving next to Nottingham Forest hosting Bournemouth, currently a pick'em. Again, Bournemouth with all the juice this time, over unders 2.5, juice a little bit to over. Nottingham Forest have been a lot better home team for the last couple seasons, how they stayed in the Premier League. I think Steve Cooper's still in his job. We'll see how long that lasts, but ultimately there is some pressure. I mean, some pressure on the manager, of course. Bournemouth on the other side, they had that weird abandonment of their match, and had been playing really well, but fell behind to Luton Town at home, which is would be, I think, normally a pretty embarrassing type of situation, or something that was not expected. Now I feel like there's a little bit the valuation of Bournemouth to me is a little bit rich, being a favorite on the road to Nottingham Forest. Yes, they've been playing a lot better. Yes, they have a manager who's confident in his stead or in his place, but ultimately Nottingham Forest is the side I want here. I'm hoping that they move to something bigger than Pick'em, but I'm interested in that number right now. Also, Nottingham Forest at home, they're going to play a little bit more aggressively and be a little bit more front-footed or attacking. Bournemouth are always going to play a counter-attacking style. That's the Iraola way. It's worked really well, and I love him as an underdog, but it's a little bit more difficult to back or to be involved with as a favorite. So I think I'll also add the under 2.5 to my list, because when favorites are when I want to bet against a favorite, and especially a road one, I think I'll usually bet against that favorite's offense, and I think this sets up very well for that. Moving next to Tottenham hosting Everton. Currently Tottenham a 3/4 goal favorite at home. All the juice on Everton on the road. Over under is 3, and this is juice all the way to over. Now Carabao Cup play, I want to say they were both involved. Let me see if I can make sure if I'm right on that or not. Let's see. Maybe they didn't, because Fulham did visit Everton. So Everton did play in the Carabao Cup. Newcastle had Chelsea, West Ham had somebody else. They had Liverpool. So Tottenham looks like they'll have a rest advantage here. That's huge, and especially important in this festive fixtures period. But Everton have been playing a lot. I mean, I guess they've both been playing really well. Everton, I think, just winning every Premier League match they play since they were deducted 10 points from their total. That's been huge for them. And as a 3/4 goal underdog, I'm going to look that way as an underdog player. Of course, I'm not as worried about playing at Tottenham. I don't know that matters as much. Certainly playing at Everton, that would swing line significantly. But the price is pretty large here for Tottenham who are doing a great job of stealing results when they don't deserve them, and conceding results away to opposing teams when they are the better side. Tottenham are getting healthier, looking a little bit better, but Everton have been awesome. And Sean Dyche has proven over his Premier League managerial career that he can quiet offenses, and that's the way to get to Tottenham. And Tottenham's going to give up a bunch of chances just because of the nature of their high line and their styles. So I'm pretty interested in Everton. It is a little bit certainly playing the streak because they've been playing so well, but a single goal loss is only going to cost you half of your stake. So that does interest me there. Over under is 3 here, juice all the way to over. I'm tempted to look at unders with with Everton involved, because I think their defense has been good and their offense has been, I think, maybe overperforming their expected goal values. But the problem with any sort of Tottenham total is there's going to be a lot of chances on goal. They're going to play a crazy style, and on ball is not great for under. So I think Everton getting that 3/4 of a goal is the only interest for me right now. Fulham then hosts Burnley. Currently, Fulham a 3/4 goal favorite at home with more of the juice. Over under is 2.5. Juice all the way to over. Um, Burnley are struggling, I think, in a transition mode between our style that worked in the championship last year is not going to work here. So we're going to be a lot more defensive, but then their chances on goal are basically drying up. I think that fits Fulham pretty well, who've been riding the red card, and they were scoring a ton of goals. Then Raul Jimenez got red carded in the first half and missed 70 or so minutes of a match. And then that caused some big problems for them. They ended up falling apart, and I think basically being under the caution and fighting Newcastle on the road with one less man for 70 minutes. That was brutal for them, and might have impacted how they played in the Carabao Cup midweek. So they played an extra match as well. And then, of course, the extra additional effort that's required by playing an extra or playing with a man down. I don't know that they're in the best physical shape right now, but they do get a pretty weak promoted side entering into their home stadium. So that's helpful. I think my biggest interest here is under 2.5. It's getting juice right now, or getting odds. So that does interest me. It does feel like a little bit of a play on Burnley, but their defense and really their style of play has changed recently. And Fulham's offense is still one I want to bet against, despite their recent uptick in goal scoring chances and ability to put the ball into the net. Next, we'll go to Liverpool hosting Arsenal. Looks like the last match on Saturday, the Christmas Eve. Liverpool a 1/4 goal favorite at home to Arsenal. Over under is 2 3/4 and is juiced to over. Rare to see Arsenal an underdog, but certainly that happens at the top of the table clash, especially on the road at Anfield. Liverpool didn't look great in that first half against Manchester United. Of course, then had Carabao Cup midweek where Arsenal were out. So finally, Arsenal gets a rest advantage. And that does matter a little bit. Now, it really depends on kind of where you expect this match to go and who's going to take initiative. I think both teams want to win this matchup, which probably pushes this the draw, I think, a little bit more likely. Liverpool currently a favorite, Arsenal then favorite if you're going the three-way line, and the draw is kind of the outsider at the moment. I think there's a good chance this one does end in a draw, which would make Arsenal getting that 1/4 of a goal even more valuable. I think the Liverpool pretty much rotated significantly for their Carabao Cup match. So at home against West Ham on Wednesday. So they're going to have whatever starters get into that match or got into that match. I've not watched it yet. But that's going to limit their effectiveness a little bit, I think. And Arsenal, yes, they're going on the road, and yes, they're going to have to fight against the Anfield crowd. But ultimately, I think they're these are two teams that are fighting for the title. Arsenal, I think, were expected to be around they were expected to be the biggest challenger to Manchester City. Doesn't say that they can't lose this road matchup, but as an underdog right now, I'm interested. And for the total, both these teams want to attack, but I do feel like that almost means we're going to get a lower scoring match because both are trying to protect, but also try to attack. And that means a lot of time in transition between the two. You don't want to see that basketball game breaking out where everyone's just taking shots on goal every time down the pitch. But I do think if this number gets to 3, I'll be looking closer at the under. Now I'll move to the last match of the week before we get to the Serie A, and then of course we'll do an ultimate best bet coming forward. And we'll go to Wolves hosting Chelsea. Currently, Wolves a 1/2 goal underdog at home. All the juice is on the Wolves side. Over under is 2.5. Also juiced all the way to over. Even more juice than the side. So we might see 2 3/4 come. And I don't really know why we would. Wolves are going to play a defensive brand. They are much better at home. That crowd behind them is huge. I feel like the performances from Wolves defensively have not been as great lately, but they are ultimately a side they're going to try to take a lead and kill the game. I think we've seen that from Gary O'Neill so far. From a Chelsea point of view, they have no idea what they're doing. They're lost. They're in transition. I don't know where they're transitioning to, but it's not going great. So I'm interested in Wolves as the home underdog, and I'm also interested in under 2.5. That might even climb to 2 3/4 before this kicks off. So I think for my best bet on this English Premier League card for this weekend, this Christmas Eve, and Eve again, and Eve again weekend, starting on Thursday here, December 21st. I think my biggest interest is into that potentially fading Bournemouth as a in their recent uptick in form. I think that's my biggest interest, and so I'll put Nottingham Forest under 2.5 as my best bet from England. So now I'll move to Italy, and we have a bunch of matches all running up against each other since there's a huge celebration of the life of Jesus Christ or something like that. But before we get into that, if you're not a member of my Patreon yet, or you're not a patron, go check it out. Patreon.com/thereal_G1, the best spot to get all my leans, plays, write-ups, everything you got. And you can even download the application, turn on notifications, and every time I lock in a play, I hit this button that notifies all users so you see when I'm playing something, and you'll know when I play it, you'll play it, and you'll get the same numbers that I'm getting, because I've been spending a lot of time trying to get the best number, especially on college basketball favorites, which have been moving a significant amount lately. That to me has been the sweet spot for me. I think I'm still over 60%. I'm still a little bit behind on catching up on grading of things, but it's been a really great run to start the season. We made 36 units or so on pregame last year. So trying to keep that going. It's been an awesome start. And we're going to try to make that happen as long as possible. Of course, soccer stuff goes there, all the football stuff I'm playing as well. Patreon.com/thereal_G Warner, especially if you subscribe on other sites. It might be a good financial decision for you to check that out and get everything in one place and on your phone with a buzz every time I lock something in case you're at a Christmas party this weekend, or just trying to avoid your family. Perfect spot to get a play in your phone. Go throw that in there and hopefully profit on the other side. So now we'll move to Serie A in Italy, and this will be the last portion of this podcast, and then I'll summarize an ultimate best bet. Get that on Instagram and YouTube Shorts, of course. If you can follow me on those platforms, another great spot if you want to save yourself 30, 40 minutes or so and just get that quick and dirty minute or so segment. So moving to Friday, we have Sassuolo hosting Genoa. Sassuolo having a red card in, I think, their last 3 matches. 2 for them, 1 this last time for Udinese, but currently Sassuolo a quarter goal favorite to Genoa with almost all the juice right now. Over-under's 2.5 with almost all the juice to under. Genoa with a great performance in their midweek match, or excuse me, their Friday match to open last week's Serie A calendar against Juventus. Fell behind, but got an equalizer and held on for a draw. I like that side. I feel like Sassuolo have looked very immature in recent weeks, and I don't really see that changing necessarily. So pretty interested in Genoa getting a quarter of a goal. Their offense hasn't been as good lately. Newly promoted side who came up and were flying for a while. They've had a bunch of injuries in their front line. They're getting a little bit healthier, and then we're missing their forward, the young star forward who came back, Retegui, and then eventually got hurt again. Not sure his status, but ultimately that does help the under if he doesn't play. I just think Sassuolo, they've not been really good enough is the best way to put it. Conceding late goals and really having big problems keeping all 11 men on the pitch. They usually go down to 10. That might cater towards being more interested in the Genoa side, but I feel like their defense has been a lot better lately. They've kind of found their footing in Serie A defensively. Their offense is kind of underwhelmed a little bit lately, but I do like that underdog. Moving next to Empoli hosting Lazio, same time window early on Friday, early afternoon here in the United States. Empoli, a half a goal underdog at home with almost all the juice overs, 2.25 juiced pretty heavily to over. I don't know who's betting Lazio overs at this point. They seem to have real problems scoring more than 1 goal in a match, and they're pretty good defensively. I've really kind of taken on the Maurizio Sarri ideal, which worked really well last season, but then kind of maybe because their offense wasn't so good, they were picking up the points they were expecting. I don't know where Empoli are going to score goals. They seem like a fluke every time they find the net. Certainly some concerns that they give up too many goals to keep this under. But at home, I expect them to perform a lot better. So I like that Empoli under 2.25. And I think I like it more than getting that half of a goal at home because Lazio have been winning, even if they haven't been looking that impressive. Next, go to Monza hosting Fiorentina. Currently, Monza a quarter goal underdog at home with all the juice. Over-unders 2.5, juice a little bit to under. Monza with a pretty disappointing performance, though I thought they were playing fairly well at Milano or against Milan last weekend. AC Milan just eventually used their talented players to find goals and then found more and then found more. I think this is a good opportunity for Monza, but another tough matchup with Fiorentina coming in, a bigger club in the European places last season, who's going to try to possess the ball and keep Monza from having chances. And that'll really put a lot of pressure on the Monza defense as well, because they're used to attacking and probably playing defense with the ball in their possession, just trying to avoid counterattacks. So Monza trying to defend for a lot longer does concern me, though I just don't know necessarily that they contribute a lot to the scoreboard, and Fiorentina are not very efficient scoring either. So I do like the home dog. It's very juiced at the moment, might fall to pick them, and I think that might reduce my interest because I do think a draw, being profitable on the home underdog is a lot more interesting. But I'll put that quarter of a goal on my list. I think I like under 2.5 a little bit more. Moving next to Salernitana, they're hosting AC Milan. Currently, Salernitana a 1.25 goal underdog at home with more of the juice. Over unders 2.75, just a little bit to over. So Salernitana, they have not been a very good offense. They've barely stayed in this league for multiple seasons now. And then their defense is really problematic when they get put under pressure. They should be under a lot of it, even at home to Milan, though the price is really, really gigantic. I think it feels high considering how much Milan have struggled this season. So for that reason, Salernitana, I'm putting them on my list as a home underdog. I'm going to try to find ways to get away from it because I've not had a ton of success backing them. And then Milan, I feel like their defense has been solid against the lower quality sides in Serie A. And I feel like asking for 3 goals in a Milan Salernitana match seems like a lot, especially the home defense potentially playing better with the home crowd behind them. Moving to the 23rd on Saturday now. We have Frosinone hosting Juventus. Currently Frosinone a 3/4 goal underdog at home with all the juice on Juve. Over under is 2.5. Just a little bit to under. So Frosinone played a bunch of backups in their midweek Coppa Italia match, but then played one starter who was suspended for this weekend's matchup anyway. So pretty much they played the reserves, and this should be as fresh of a team as possible. Finally seeing a Juve total above 2 is nice, especially at 2.5. Feels gigantic. It's definitely I think questioning the Frosinone defense, but I just don't think Frosinone are very likely to pierce Juventus's defense whatsoever. Juve have shown that they want to take a 1-0 lead and kill the matchup. Okay, I can't turn off the home phone, unfortunately. So I guess that's what we got there. But from a play perspective in this one, I think I like that under 2.5 more than anything. And until I get a full goal of insurance, I think I'm less interested in Frosinone. We might get there. Juice is certainly pointing that direction, but for now, I'll just put the under on my list. Bologna then hosts Atalanta, coming off their own Coppa Italia play midweek. They did rotate significantly for a trip to Inter, but Atalanta, I don't think had anything to do because I think they're in a later round or something like that, and those are more makeup matches. But we got to pick them right here. Split juice both ways, so tough to call. Certainly the odds makers are not making a statement or a stance or taking a stance in this matchup, though you could say Atalanta rated better on a neutral because they're facing Bologna on the road here. Over under is 2.25, just to over. And I feel like this is going to be a good matchup against an Atalanta offense that is really I don't know if that's firing as it has in the past, but it's certainly playing a lot better this season. Bologna never seem to score goals very easily, but they are a big club and they do have a big fan base and are at home. So that's my interest here. Not much for me to do at Pick'em, especially for an ultimate best bet perspective. Stay tuned for that. That's coming. And I don't think I want to play unders with Atalanta at this point. Their defense is solidified, certainly, and Bologna are not that likely to score. But this if there's ever a match that could be a shootout, I think it's one that involves Atalanta and Gasparini, their manager. Torino then hosts Udinese. Currently, Torino a 0.5 goal favorite at home with all the juice over. There's 2.25 juice all the way to under. Udinese, I don't trust them to score, but really I don't trust them to defend, especially when they're taking tough red cards, which I guess you could say that's kind of a fluke, unlikely to happen, but Udinese are just a team I want to be against. And I do feel like if I'm playing under 2.25, it's me backing them a little bit, though it's really, to me, it's also fading their offense. Torino are very likely to have a lot of the ball, and it will be up to them to figure out how much Udinese will score, but also how many times Torino are able to efficiently find the back of the net, because they're just not efficient. They have the ball a ton. They're great at possessing the ball. I love them as an underdog against some of the bigger clubs in Serie A, but I think from my perspective, under's the only way I want to go in this one. It's a very juiced under 2.25 right now. So you might want to get on that if you like that one as we're speaking about it. Verona then hosts Cagliari in a big battle at the bottom of the table. Verona, who've been hanging on for dear life to stay in the league and now have huge financial problems. I think their owner has been questioned recently for maybe being bankrupt or not able to pay finances, maybe pay even wages. That would be an issue. I've not heard that necessarily for the Verona team, but I could see some players certainly being a little bit concerned. Verona currently a quarter goal favorite. All the juice and calorie on the road. Over under is 2.25. Juice all the way to over. I think this is going to be a really tough relegation 6-pointer. And for that reason, I think goalless is a very possible outcome. So I like Cagliari getting a quarter of a goal, and I like under 2.25. Cagliari been in the late show, scoring a ton of goals in stoppage time. I don't know if that'll continue, but you never know. And then 2 more matches to go. Then we'll give an ultimate best bet. Inter Milan, a 1.75 goal favorite at home to Lecce, coming off their Coppa Italia, but they did rotate pretty significantly, though their reserves are, of course, great. Over under is 2.75 here, juiced all the way to over. We might get a 3 before this kicks off, and that would interest me, though the Inter Milan offense is not one I generally want to be against. And if you're playing under, you're certainly hoping that you can keep them as low scoring as possible. Lecce have been very competitive against better clubs in Serie A this season. I don't know that they can score against Inter Milan, but if they do, that does put a total in big time jeopardy. Until we get a push on 3, I don't think I want to get involved here. And I just don't know, even until we get a 2, that I want to get involved with Lecce, because I do feel like this is a match that they could lose pretty handily. And last but not least, in Serie A, before we get to the ultimate best bet, we have Roma hosting Napoli in a pretty big match of big names. And Napoli's recent play, despite playing Coppa Italia midweek, they are a favorite on the road at the Stadio Olimpico, which is saying something because Roma's got a great home crowd. I don't know the status of Paulo Dybala, who's been hurt recently. Certainly, if he can play, I would love to see him in that lineup. Lukaku, I don't know if his red card suspension goes past just that one match, but depending on what Roma's lineup looks like, which is hard to argue or even make expectations of what it will look like, especially a few days before this match takes place. I think it's on Saturday. Yes, on Saturday, the 23rd. So, total is we got 2.25, just a little bit to over. I think that's taking into consideration a Roma side that's been playing some low scoring matches lately. Napoli have not really been doing that. And I feel like with Osimhen back in the lineup, the Napoli offense is not the same as it was last season when it was the best in Europe, but it's been a lot better. And Walter Mazzarri, their second manager this season, has been doing a lot better than Rudy Garcia was. So it's kind of a tough spot. I was probably hoping for Napoli to be underdogs here before I saw this number, doing this live for you all. But I think the Roma home crowd is significant. I went to it this year for a Europa League match. It wasn't that serious, but it was also Slavia Prague in town from Prague. So I'm not sure it was that significant of a match, but this should be, especially the last matchup before the Christmas break. So I'll put Rome on my list, but at Pick'em right now, I don't think they'll make it for my ultimate best bet. And I do feel like 2.25 feels really small. I mean, it's possible it's a very competitive match. We don't see 3 goals, but I think there's so much I want to see with this Roma lineup before I decide anything. So until that happens, I'm probably going to hang out right here. So now it's time for the ultimate best bet. But before we get into that, thank you. I want to thank everyone for this 2023. I'm going to post my Spotify Wrapped because they said some really nice numbers, like my follower count, my listen count are both pretty much doubled subscribers as well. So I appreciate all of you across various platforms, whether on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. If you leave a 5-star review, I'll get it read. You can make a question or a statement or something like that relevant to college basketball. I'll have Big East Ben read it. To pro football, I'll have Andrew Schnicker read it. If it's for soccer stuff, well, I'm the only one that does that. I'll try to throw something in there. Maybe I'll do a baseball podcast in the off season. There's just so much hot stove stuff that's happening. So it's hard to keep it all straight, A, and B, we're so long from games. So tell me if you want something, leave a comment if you want a baseball pod, because we had a really good season last year. Going to try to keep that going. Pregame had a great year. Thank you for all the support there. If you're coming over from there and listening to my podcast with AJ Hoffman, great. If you're listening to stuff because you found me there, awesome. Support's been unreal. I'm also the $1 handicapper today on Thursday, December 21st. So get my college basketball pick for $1. Cheapest you'll ever see it. I think. and hopefully get another winner because we're trying to keep that momentum going. If you're not a member of my Patreon, check it out. Become a patron, patreon.com/real_G Warner. And then I've got some free money for you all, especially if you don't have an account at BetOnline or SportsBetting.ag. I know this works for first-time depositors, so go follow the links. You get, I think, a up to $500 100% match. So put in $500. They give you 500 at sportsbetting.ag. And it's pretty much the same look and just a different color than BetOnline. So it might be the same spot. I just can't really tell the difference at this point. If you're not a member yet at BetOnline, I think they're matching up to 50% of your deposit, first-time depositors. So go get some extra outs. Go take some extra money. You're going to be betting it anyway. Why not take some extra money from a casino? No one that I know does this. Other places, the American books, they will tax you significantly. They report it to the IRS if you win a certain amount. So go spend some time at betonline.ag and sportsbetting.ag, and the links are below in the podcast description. Okay, so it's time for the ultimate best bet. So let me get the video rolling, and then let's just hope that this is a good enough platform. So this is the real_G Warner. This is betting the pitch, the final European soccer edition, maybe at least right final before Christmas. We'll put it that way. I think we'll still have Premier League stuff coming out as the festive fixture period is hot and heavy. But from England, my best bet on this episode, I like the Nottingham Forest under 2.5. And in Serie A, I like Frosinone. They're under 2.5 at home for a Juventus match early Saturday morning here in the United States on December 23rd. For my ultimate best bet, I'm going to pick that Frosinone under. I do like them a little bit as a home underdog, but ultimately Juventus has followed the same type of script for all their matches. They want to take a 1-0 lead, and then they want to sit back in defense and say, Frosinone or any other team, come beat us or come equalize and then come beat us after that. And so many teams have had trouble, big names across Italy. And so I don't think Frosinone are going to have much of a chance. A 1-0 final hits under 2.5 very easily. So play under 2.5 Frosinone hosting Juventus. And that'll do it for this episode of Betting the Pitch. Thank you for tuning in. And I will see you for the next probably Premier League episode coming up soon. We'll see if I can get, we should have a Friday episode with Big East Ben going through the college basketball card this weekend. But I'm not sure there's going to be so much on there. So we'll figure out if there's not great games, we'll figure out some sort of activity or something like that. Maybe we'll figure out some Maui decorations to entertain you. But thank you as always for the support. And we'll keep doing this for next year, and hopefully we'll keep the good times rolling, or however they say it. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you very soon.